Greetings, music nerds, and welcome to Season 8 of the Music Makers and Soul Shakers podcast. This season is brought to you by our newest sponsors, Larrivee Guitars and Fishman Amplification. I'm your host, Steve Dawson, coming to you from the Hen House Studio in Nashville, Tennessee. This season, I'll be taking you on a journey down the many rabbit holes in the process of making great music. I'll be speaking to instrumentalists, songwriters, producers, up-and-comers through legendary veterans, and we'll go deep into their history and their process of creating unforgettable music. This show continues to be listener-supported. You can help keep the show going with a one-time donation or a Patreon subscription. And when you sign up for Patreon, you get an ad-free version of the show, as well as getting entered to win some killer prizes from our sponsors at the end of the season. We have an incredible Chase Bliss Lossy pedal up for grabs, as well as a Fishman acoustic guitar pickup and effects pedals, as well as a pedal from Union Tube and Transistor, and more. You can get links to all this and sign up now at makersandshakerspodcast.com. Meanwhile, many thanks to the sponsors for this season. Please check them out and let them know that I sent you. They are Larrivee Guitars, Fishman Pickups, Chase Bliss Pedals, Union Tube and Transistor, Spectra 1964, and the Hen House Hang. All right, thanks for tuning in, and let's get down to it. Howdy, music nerds, and welcome to episode number 174 of the podcast. And on the show today is an incredible singer and songwriter and fiddle player, and now a producer as well, Maya DeVitry. So thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been a minute here. I was a bit too swamped in January to get any episodes out. I had a wonderful trip to Ireland where I played on a record and worked with some really amazing folks at a studio called Monique Recording Studios just outside of Cork. Then I've had a bunch of gigs and things happening in the later half of the month, so it was just too nuts to get an episode out. But now we have the final 2 episodes of Season 8 coming to you in February, and this is the first of those. And now with the end of the season coming up, we are going to be doing our Patreon subscriber giveaway, thanks to our incredible sponsors this year. So to get in on this action, you just have to subscribe to the podcast Patreon, and you're in. You're automatically entered. That can be done through the website at makersandshakerspodcast.com. There's going to be 3 Patreon members making off like total bandits in a couple of weeks. The prizes include a Union Tube and Transistor shiny pedal. There's actually a few more things coming from Union. I don't know what they all are, but we'll see. So that part will get ramped up. Then there's a Chase Bliss Lossy pedal, really cool pedal. 2 pedals from Fishman, an AFX Blue Chorus pedal and an AFX Echoback delay pedal. Also from Fishman is a Matrix Infinity acoustic guitar pickup. There's 2 BB-DIs, which are phenomenal DIs from Spectra 1964. And there's a bunch of t-shirts from Union, a Music Makers and Soul Shakers t-shirt. Man, what a haul. All this stuff is going to get split up between 3 winners, and all you got to do is sign up right now for the Patreon, and you're in. It's like a couple bucks a month is all you need to do. And it supports the show, helps us out, and you can win a lot of really cool stuff. Thanks to some people that signed up this week, Lynn Weinberger, Daniel Seeley, and Joe McCormick. The winners of the contest are going to be announced at the beginning of the next episode that comes out, which will be 2 weeks from today. Also coming up is the Hen House Hang Mixing with Steve. It's my 2-day mixing class that happens here in Nashville, March 22nd and 23rd. There's still a few spots left. If you're interested, you can sign up now over at thehenhousestudio.com. So on the show today is Maya DeVitry, and Maya is an incredible musician, someone I've had the chance to do a number of things with over the last few years. Some of you may know her from her work with her band called the Stray Birds, and a lot of people know her from her more recent solo recordings and touring, of which she does a lot. She lives here in Nashville, but she's originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and Maya has released 4 solo albums now since 2019. And the latest one is a killer album that she self-produced, and we talk all about that on this show, and it's called The Only Moment, and that came out a few months ago. I first met Maya when she showed up at my studio a bunch of years back for a session with Birds of Chicago, and I would also see her around the halls of Folk Alliance over quite a few years when I was going to that regularly. And she came out on tour opening for Birds of Chicago a couple of times. So we got to hang a little, and then I brought her out to take part in my annual Vancouver shows a couple of times. So people that have seen those shows that I do in the fall have seen her there. All of those things were great experiences, and getting to see her perform and develop as a solo songwriter and performer have been really interesting. She's got an incredibly powerful and unique voice and has worked really hard at developing her style with both singing and playing, and particularly songwriting. She's got a really interesting story, and it was great to get a chance to talk to her about it and how she took the plunge into finally embracing a solo career and also navigating a pretty hefty touring schedule on top of producing records for other artists. And in fact, when we did this interview a couple of weeks back, she had just had to cancel some shows because she blew her throat out from overuse, which is, it's a common problem that musicians have to deal with, the health and upkeep of your instrument. And so it was kind of interesting to get into some of that stuff too. You can get all the latest info on Maya at DeVitry.com, get all her tour dates and listen to her music there. And with that, please enjoy my conversation with Maya DeVitry. You've been going harder than anyone I know, I think.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of shows booked that I chose. And then there were a couple things that came up that were like support tours, like where I go out solo and open the shows. And those are hard to turn down because logistically it's so much easier for me in theory because I'm just like by myself instead of like managing a band and stuff. And so I added those in all the cracks. And then on top of that, I
thinking it was a great idea.
Thinking it was a great idea. And a lot of it was great, but it just meant that I had no rest ever. And then I'm also working on a couple records for people. So there'd be like a day where I'd finally get to sleep in a little bit, and I'd actually have to like set an alarm to get up and like listen to mixes or something for like a record to get notes to someone,
Yeah.
So it was just no rest. And then my partner Ethan got sick as soon as we got back from a tour in Colorado right before Thanksgiving. And then it was probably the flu. And then I got it too. And then I tried to go back out on the road.
Well, you have to, right?
Because what am I going to do? Call in sick? I mean, you can, but I was like, it's not COVID, so I'll be fine. I'll power through. But I didn't have like any reserves. And also the first thing we did was a 2-hour live stream where we were like in a studio with cameras, and it's all online. It's like on YouTube, but we weren't using monitors.
So you were pushing it.
So I was like pushing my voice, and we did that because I'm not used to using in-ears. So it was like, okay, we can either use in-ears or nothing.
Do you have in-ears?
No.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, in-ears or nothing. And I was like, okay, nothing.
Yeah.
And I said out loud because everybody.
But you're playing with drums and like full
This
band.
was actually a trio. So this was me on acoustic, Joel Timmons on electric guitar, and then Reese Williams on electric bass.
Okay.
And we had the volume really low, and I was really struggling even during like the sound check. They're getting all the levels and stuff. And then as soon as it was like, okay, now it's showtime, I was like, whoa, I have a lot more in my voice, and powered through, but it was like all adrenaline. And then the next morning I woke up and I just like had no voice.
Brutal.
And
so were you sick as well, or was it just you blew it out?
I was sick, and I think I also blew it out because I had such bad congestion from being sick, and I was taking Sudafed. Like here's the whole story. I was taking Sudafed for like 3 days, like not too much of it, but like the daily dose, but it was starting to keep me up at night because it really like does that to some people. Yeah. And so I had like very little sleep, and it was helping the congestion. Like I wasn't congested in my face anymore, but it was really drying out my vocal cords because that's the other thing it does. And so I was like trying to treat myself in order to be able to sing, but by doing that.
Has that happened to you before?
No.
So
I never lost my voice before.
Horrified. You woke up unable to talk.
I woke up at like 3 a.m. in the hotel, and like a few hours after the show, and 3 a.m, and I was just like, I went to the bathroom and I had like such pain in my throat, and I just because I'd started the sickness with a sore throat, and I was just like trying to make noise, and there was just like nothing there. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And then I'm starting to like play the scenario through my head of like, I lost count of how many showers I took that night. Like I would like lay in bed because I couldn't get back to sleep because I'd taken the Sudafed and it was like keeping me up. And so I just kept like, I'd lay there another hour and then like take another shower and just be like, now I'm going to steam it out and my voice is going to come back. And I did that until 8 a.m.
And then you had a show that night.
Well, that day at 8 a.m, I went to an urgent care because I was like, I think I need outside perspective because I knew I couldn't do the show that night. But I was like, I need to know, like, can I do the show tomorrow? Or will it be
What
back
did you think they were going to tell
3
you?
days? I didn't know. I was like delirious. Like I had hardly slept and I was in Lexington, Kentucky.
Give me some good news.
And I knew they were going to tell me because I've heard of this happening to people before that they could give me steroids.
Oh, right. Yeah.
To get through the week. And I've heard of people choosing that. And I've heard of it going really, getting them through as a Band-Aid for a couple days or things kind of getting worse and you don't know that you're still over-singing or that you're hurting yourself. And so that was an option, but the doctor was also like, what you really need to do is just like rest and here's some antibiotics.
That wasn't the answer you wanted.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, like how many days, and she was like, at least 5. It's like, okay, I'll just do what you're saying. And I needed at least 5. She was like, it's probably going to take 7 to 10 until you have your voice back, but you're going to need at least 5 days vocal rest complete.
And she nailed it. It was exactly what you needed.
Yeah. And so I texted the band. I texted Joel and Reese and they were back at the hotel. They didn't even know I was at urgent care. Yeah. I didn't want to wake them up. I just took myself there and then we just came home. So
what are you going to do? Yeah,
but we can reschedule the shows and there's just no way that I could have done it. Like there was no...
People are pretty understanding these days.
People are understanding.
Like, it seems to be happening left, right, and center.
It's still, I think it was the other level of why it was so exhausting to me was like, I don't think of myself as like a public figure or something, or like that my business is everybody's business. I just kind of do the show and I feel like I'm in person with people or like working in a studio face to face or something. But then as the venues and I were communicating like this, these shows are canceled or we got to reschedule, but we couldn't figure all that out like in that moment. And so people were, a guy would like message me like, hey, I saw the show's canceled or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I have to like make a post. I have to just like write a thing out that I'm sick and I can't do this, or that I lost my voice, or like, I just have to say why these shows aren't happening. And I think I just was so burned out from the fall that I was like, I can't, like, I just want to crawl in a hole. Like I want to be sick and not have to explain myself.
How have you dealt with keeping your voice all intact the rest of your career? Because you're a powerful singer. Like you're not singing quietly. You're projecting. Have you had training?
No, but I don't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
I drink alcohol like occasionally when I'm home, but not on tour at all. And that's a new thing. That's like since my solo chapter.
Yeah.
The Stray Birds had a different relationship with alcohol.
Okay.
Also, the Stray Birds and my thing are really different in that, like, I did come close to losing my voice a lot in the Stray Birds, and I had less power in my voice and less flexibility. And I think it was because we were using one single mic. And
the whole time with that band?
Almost the whole time.
Okay. You sang differently too with Stray Birds.
I sang really differently, and I had never... Because when we started the band, we had one large diaphragm condenser mic, and that's what we used. And because a friend gave it to us, and then when we saw videos of string bands like leaning into the one mic, so we did that. But we were all different height, and so like it kind of lived in this middle ground that was like most comfortable for Oliver, probably pretty uncomfortable for me and Charlie at times, because I was kind
tall,
of Charlie's tall, so he was in all the videos he's kind of hunched over a little bit.
Actually, you guys are all tall, aren't you?
Yeah, we are, but we're still not the same height. And so it just made it tricky to like, and then like moving your body and singing, a lot of times I would be kind of twisted like to the side with my neck turned to the side, like things that would make singing really hard, but I didn't really think about any of that. And then...
Were you doing anything to maintain your voice at that point in your life? Or you just...
No, I wasn't thinking about it at all.
You just like, that shit, just like, whatever. You'll be fine by tomorrow.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it at all. Things really changed for me when I started singing on a dynamic microphone and just like being able to, and having monitors. Because like a lot of the time in the Stray Birds,
like no monitors.
No monitors. Yeah. We occasionally would have a monitor if it was like a festival stage or like something. We would start using monitors like sparingly, or like, and it would just be one and like really low.
It's almost impossible to have a monitor when you're playing like that.
Yeah, it's like it's really challenging.
Yeah,
and we didn't have a sound person we traveled with, so
even harder.
It was there was no rapport that was just kind of constant.
Yeah, when you see
anything.
someone like the Milk Carton Kids doing it and they sound so great on one mic.
Yeah. Or like Punch Brothers, or
if they didn't have a sound person with them.
Yeah, there's somebody else who's like part of that vision.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to pull it off.
Yeah.
And also like when you show up at a gig, the sound guy is like, what? Like never wants to not put it in the monitors.
Yeah.
That's always a struggle.
Yeah. But it changed it for me. I feel like I became a singer once I had a monitor, once I could hear myself. Like I don't really, singing felt lucky for me, like for basically the whole time in the Stray Birds. Like it felt lucky that I wasn't losing my voice. It felt lucky that I was singing in tune. It felt lucky that the phrasing was all, I could just hear what I could hear of those guys like being right beside me, and which is really ironic because people like loved the vocal harmonies and the vocals of that band, but I don't feel like I really got a chance to become a singer where I could think about the expression of what I was doing and the dynamics of what I was doing until I was singing on my own microphone with a monitor. And
had you ever done that before? Like was Stray Birds the first thing you did?
Stray Birds was the first thing I did, other than maybe like a pickup gig or two with people. And I don't know what the monitor situation, I don't even remember. I mean, I was like probably a teenager. I mean, I met Oliver when I was 19. We started the Stray Birds we were recording the first thing when I was 19 and 20.
Right.
So
that's so young. Yeah.
There's this festival in West Virginia, the Appalachian String Band Music Festival. It's like every August. My family has been going since I was a little kid. And they have a band contest there, the Neo-Traditional Band Contest.
What's the name of the festival?
It's called the Appalachian String Band.
Oh, that's what it's called.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But everybody calls it Clifftop.
Okay.
But they have this band contests and like fiddle contests, banjo contests, flat-footing contests. It's all like a celebration of traditional Appalachian music and like that oral tradition and stuff. And they have a neo-traditional band contest, which I have entered and been a part of for a lot of years in different ensembles and stuff. That's kind of my other experience in being on stage before the Stray Birds, was doing that contest once a year.
Yeah.
And we were singing on our own mics, but it was like you sing one song on stage and there's monitors. I didn't even like know.
Right.
It's a contest. There's not like you're doing a sound check or something. You just do it and you like hope that all the mics are on. It's not, I really remember, I like really remember being at the 5 spot and starting to play my solo shows in town, like with Ethan and Anthony DaCosta and Dominic Billett, and just being at the 5 spot and being like, okay, I have to figure out like, do I want, they're asking me like, how's your monitor? Like, how's your mix? What do you need more of? And like, I had no idea.
It's so different.
I had no idea what,
in your face all of a sudden,
what I needed or what to ask. And as I've gotten more comfortable with that, it's been really fun. And I feel so much more like I can communicate and be expressive.
So was that just a process of like doing it over and over again? Or did you like rent a space with a monitor and like practice, or how did that evolve for you?
It was just doing it. The Stray Birds did switch to separate microphones for like the very last couple months that we were a band. So, and I think we rented a space to do that.
Yeah.
Because
it was just so different.
It was so different.
You play live with a lot of different configurations. Like you have duo, you have full band, you do solo. Is that a weird adjustment for you at all? Or are you comfortable in all those situations?
I'm really comfortable in all of them.
Okay.
And it's been intentional because, again, like coming from the Stray Birds where it was, okay, this trio, no one can be like swapped out. It's just, this is what it is. This is the sound and this is the chemistry and this is the thing. And I think I really want what I do to be about the songs, and that the players, I also feel like it's a value for me that the live performances are not bound to the recordings. And so playing in different configurations, I feel like it makes me a stronger player because I literally change the way I play guitar if there's drums. I'm so much more rhythmic and subdividing and, percussive with it.
Is that an instant thing? Do you just automatically like flip a switch and do that?
Or now I do. Okay. Now I do. Or it takes like a show to kind of settle in or remember, oh yeah, this is something that supports this overall sound. But I also found like when it's the less that's going on stage, it's really cool to see like how my relationship with the audience changes kind of, and how like when it's a duo show, me and Joel, like telling stories in between songs or like, I don't know, some kinds of interactions like that are just so, it almost feels more powerful. Like it's like another band member or something, like another character. And the thing is like the story. And then there's really only two other things going on stage. And it works when it's a band show, but it's like there's so much available to us in the band show, like so many texture changes and feel changes and stuff that sometimes I just naturally want to talk less because we can like have kind of like an atmosphere kind of thing going on in a transition between songs.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And so it just like changes the shape of the show. And I really like that I can choose the ensemble based on the room. If I'm booking a tour, like, are we playing rooms that it would be really great to have drums? Like that would be a really good, valuable asset in
so it's not
presenting a show. Or is it like a community hall in Vermont that is used to acoustic music and we're kind of pushing the limit by having an electric guitar? And I just kind of want to be able to be flexible in all those spaces and like play in a club, and which sometimes I do totally solo now when I'm opening, or play in a theater or play in a dive bar, and what's going to work there and what kind of energy can I, bring.
So it's not like you would ideally like to have a full band always, but money dictates that you do a duo show or a solo show.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to have a full band always.
Cool.
Yeah.
And same with solo, like you'll, even on a tour that you could potentially afford a accompanist or a full band, you're just like, I would like to do this solo for artistic reasons.
Well, I've never done a solo tour where the whole show is me. Like,
okay, I've
never done, even when it's a small room, like headlining shows, where I'm the thing for 75 to 90 minutes. I've never done that solo. Okay. That I will do at least duo.
Right.
But when I go out as an opener, I'll either go out solo or duo, usually. Usually that's a little more dictated by the money because the opening fees are, kind of cover one person. After travel and stuff. But it can be two. Like when I did the Wood Brothers stuff, because that was something the Stray Birds did, but then I also did a Wood Brothers tour with my own music, and that I took Joel out because I just thought this will be, actually that was partially decided because I wanted a second driver.
Nice.
Because there was some crazy routing because they were on a bus and we were going to be chasing the bus around.
Yep.
So like it was like Southeast Pennsylvania to Toronto to
God.
Philly, like just like do like back and forth. And there were some crazy drives and I was like, I'm going to need a driver. I might as well just have Joel. He would he would love to play this tour anyway.
He's a driver and a killer guitar player.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of it can be really practical like that. But I also wanted him on those shows because I was thinking about the Wood Brothers audience and the, like, how to best kind of communicate with that audience. And I thought, I think me being able to jam a little bit with a person is going to be a better vibe than me doing like a songwriter set. So
yeah, we were out opening for them with Birds of Chicago right at when COVID hit, and I remember a lot of long drives. Those guys are road dogs.
Yeah. So it depends, but I really like the flexibility, and I don't necessarily advertise it. At first, I felt like I should like put it on the poster, like this tour is a trio tour. Or this, sometimes
I don't think it matters to people.
Sometimes I make a mention of it, but like I'm kind of trying to cultivate a thing where it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Like a trust in your audience where they're like, we're going to go see Maya. Maybe she'll have 3 people. Maybe it'll just be her, but
maybe she'll have like a French horn quintet backing her up this time.
Not a bad idea. In this last year, how many gigs did you do?
I don't know.
Like 150?
I really doubt it'd be that high. I think it
seems
might
like
be.
You were constantly on the move.
There were big stretches where I wasn't though. Like the summer was really light.
Okay.
I think it is probably closer to like 80 or 100, but just with the travel in between, like easily moving around 150 days.
Yeah. And is that comfortable for you? Like, do you think, I mean, aside from hitting the wall that you did, do you think you can maintain that in the years to come? Or did you learn something from that this year where you're like, I gotta back off a little bit? One
of the things that was really new for me this year is like I went overseas twice. Mm-hmm. So I did a Europe tour in January. That was solo support. And then I did a UK tour in April, duo with Joel. So
when you go solo, are you driving yourself too?
No. So part of me being able to take that tour in the Europe tour was that I was going to get to ride along with John Craigie and his driver tour manager, James Partridge. So
because that would be a lot if you were also having to drive yourself.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah. And those are like the email comes in from the manager and they're like, hey, we want to offer you like this tour. Are you available to support Craigie in Europe? These are the dates. And I'm like, is a ride along possible?
Yeah.
Because
it makes a huge difference.
Make or break this. Yeah. And those guys knew it too. That was part of the deal. They're like, oh yeah. By the way, that's part of the deal. You can ride with him. I think the thing that is not sustainable for me is doing everything. Because I actually, although I had Joel drive for a bit on that Wood Brothers tour, this year in the US, I did 95% of the driving.
Whoa, you're hardcore.
Yeah. And I also tour manage and advance the shows, and I do merch.
Yeah. I mean, I know the feeling.
So that's too much. And I had already started to shift it over for this last tour. I had already worked out like with Joel and Reese, like, okay, what if I want you guys to drive for a couple hours a day, like what feels fair to you? And, how can we help? Because they could see that I was like burning out on doing all the jobs. And they're like, how can we help you? Like, what do you need? Mm-hmm. How can we do this? And I'm like, well, I want to make sure I pay you fairly, and all that stuff. So we were already like shifting over to that. But that's the thing I really need to change moving forward, because the Europe tour and the UK tour, I had a driver, like a driver tour manager.
Yeah.
So it was John Craigie's guy in January. And then I hired him to use his van and drive me and Joel, same guy, James, for the UK stuff. And those tours were like completely different for me. Like when I'm not, and he does merch. So like, and he advanced the shows, like all these
Having
other
somebody
jobs.
doing merch basically usually kind of pays for itself, if not more.
It just like, it changed everything. And I just came home and I was like, cool, I could go right back out. But as I've tried to, it's just so many moving parts. So I think like I'm moving forward, I'm going to try to be a little smarter with how to delegate certain things and make it so that, kind of like protect the energy of the show and my health and physical ability. Because it's really, really tiring to talk to people for like 45 minutes at the merch table after a show and then be talking all day long in the van, kind of like
joking around
and details and, and tour managing and telling people what time we're getting up and all that stuff. So without delegating.
You have to kind of learn that by doing it.
Yeah.
There's no way to learn it by reading about it. You have to kind of go through it.
Totally. So I'm taking a couple months to just be in Nashville, but I'm working on other stuff, like, because I have started working on records for other people. So
let's talk about that.
Like finishing, Shelby Means, who is a bass player and incredible singer. She plays with Molly Tuttle. Yeah. She has a solo record coming out. It's a bluegrass record. It's so good. And
you produced it.
I produced it. And we're just did the final mix revisions. She's about to have it mastered. Yeah. And so that's coming out probably in spring.
Like traditional bluegrass?
Traditional bluegrass. Yeah. She's got some legends on there.
Okay. So I have questions about that, but tell me your background with bluegrass.
I just grew up with parents who really liked bluegrass, and they had jams at our house.
Were you playing it like as a little kid?
I was playing. My dad taught me fiddle, like fiddle tunes and stuff, and kind of to play by ear alongside the classical stuff I was doing in school. Like I was learning violin in school, but learning fiddle tunes and stuff from my dad, and then being around the jams, and they were just like really, I mean, there was this one of my dad's friends, Demas, who is this farmer, and he would just like come over with his bass, and like he just had his voice was so. As I listened to more recorded bluegrass, I was like, wow, he's so bluegrass. But I don't know. At that time, I wasn't really listening to as many recordings. It was just what I was hearing, like at the campfire. And
was it something that you were into, like outside of going with your family to festivals and stuff? Were you listening to like Flat and Scruggs records and stuff?
I was listening to more old time kind of influence stuff first, like
what?
Like the Freight Hoppers.
Okay.
Like I did a music report in like 7th grade. You had to like pick a band. Yeah. And I did a report on the Freight Hoppers.
Cool.
Like I just love, because I loved fiddle music and loved.
You did? Okay. Yeah. So you were like searching that out.
I loved it. I loved acoustic music. I loved, some of the, Nickel Creek was really a big deal for me too. Like, because they seemed like younger and more accessible and kind of, so that was, but I really loved, like Not All Who Wander Are Lost, the Chris Thile instrumental record. I was like obsessed with that when I was in high school. Like if I would have a sleepover with like my sister and our friend Becca, like we would just have that on like repeat.
Were you getting to play that stuff with people or not really?
Not really. It was just like a lot of listening. Yeah. 'Cause I was playing, like I'd get to go to festivals and stuff too. Like my family would go to Gray Fox. So I did like the Gray Fox Kids Academy. Like,
is that a pretty strict bluegrass fest?
Yeah. I mean, they would maybe have like a Cajun band or something in the dance tent, but it's pretty bluegrass. Okay. Yeah. Like I don't know that unless I made a bluegrass record or like did a string band thing, I don't really think I would necessarily be a fit at Gray Fox. Like
now.
Yeah. Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't honestly hear a lot of bluegrass in what you do currently. But it's there, I guess, lurking around somehow.
Yeah, I think it's,
But I find it interesting that you came up through like playing so much of that stuff.
Yeah. And
Stray Birds were bluegrass inspired, but it was
maybe
not
with
a bluegrass
the 3-part
band.
harmonies. Yeah, but it wasn't a bluegrass band. We never had like a bluegrass banjo. I mean, I play clawhammer, but that's like the old time style more. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think just
how far did you take the fiddle stuff? Because I think of you as a really great fiddle player too, but you don't do it a lot.
Yeah, I got really into like Texas style fiddling for a minute.
Oh, you did, hey? Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
and I have we found this old VHS at my parents' house. It was like the variety show, like the Hempfield High School variety show, and I'm playing like a Texas fiddle style medley, like like you do like the reel and the waltz and whatever,
Yeah.
And my dad was playing like guitar backup.
Cool.
And I was watching it. I was like, who is that? Like I have no recollection of even learning that or ever doing that.
Were you taking lessons?
And not fiddle lessons. Never fiddle lessons.
So it was just your dad and like playing.
Just playing and at that point listening to recordings and just a lot of recordings. Like it's my Uncle Chris plays fiddle too. So, and he was really more into the kind of Texas and kind of more ornamented style of playing. And so he taught me like the ook pick waltz and, I don't know, like occasionally I would learn something, or he'd burn me a CD of like Aubrey Haney playing fiddle, and I would just get really into Aubrey Haney, and then I would listen to Casey Dreesen and get really into Casey Dreesen, and then I was just really into fiddle. So most of the instrumental kind of, or my ear was like listening to fiddle players a lot in high school. And then, but I was also listening to like Iris DeMent and Gillian Welch and all these like song tapes from like the Kerrville Folk Festival, because my parents had a friend who went and like made campfire recordings at Kerrville or just campsite recordings. And then we would listen to these, not even like necessarily published songs, really. They were just like a tape of people playing songs at their campsites, but really, really good songwriting, and or like Lyle Lovett, and then the band and the Beatles and all this other music my parents liked.
So you were hearing all that stuff.
I was hearing all that stuff, and that's what I was listening to. I wasn't really listening to like top 40 pop music, or I was listening to Christian rock, but that was private on my headset.
Yeah.
Because my parents were not into that. And
you rebel.
Yeah, so I was a rebel by listening to Christian rock so that I could relate to my friends at my public school, because that's what they were listening to.
That was the thing that people were
So I wanted to listen to like the Newsboys and Stephen Curtis Chapman.
That is a world I know nothing about.
So I could relate to my friends.
No kidding.
And who were listening to that stuff.
And your parents would have chastised you had they known.
Yeah.
I love that. It's kind of interesting that you didn't like pursue the bluegrass thing really ever. Like that never just came up to be in a band that was a bluegrass band. Yeah.
So I eventually when I graduated from high school, I went to the Swananoa gathering.
Oh yeah.
For
Is that in
a week.
North Carolina?
That's in North Carolina. Yeah, because I'd never been to like a fiddle camp or anything like I was always going to like orchestra camps and stuff. I mean, I think there's like a world where I probably, if I had lived in a different town or had parents that like pushed me more in certain directions, like, yeah, maybe certain different things would have happened. But like, they're pretty like laissez-faire, and just,
they weren't pushing you.
They weren't pushing me in anything specific. And I have a couple younger siblings too, so they were kind of busy. Yeah. And so I went to fiddle camp after I graduated high school and met Duncan Wickel, who's a great fiddle player, Bronwyn Keith Hines, who now plays with Molly Tuttle, and Jack Devereaux, who is a great fiddle player who also is now a luthier, and my friend Hannah Sang, who lives in Western North Carolina and is a great fiddle player and clawhammer banjo player, and she taught me banjo. And basically I just met other peers who were obsessed with fiddle music.
That were your age.
That were my age, yeah. And that was like a pretty transformational week. Like going from, that was the first time like I one of them was, Jack probably was like, hey, you should try to sing harmonies with Hannah. And I didn't really know that was something I could do, but I'd been hearing all this stuff forever. So I just like could do it. And then by the end of the week, we were like skipping class to go to Jack's friend's house and like record a song all together.
Cool.
And so then like his friend had like a basement studio set up or something. And I was like, wow, this world is the coolest.
Yeah.
Like these friends are like, this is really different for me. I've found my people or something. And they were all like about to go to Berklee, or like had done a semester already or a year or something. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should like
what year
think about this. So this is 2008.
That's when you graduated?
I graduated high school. Yeah. So I was like, maybe I should try that. And because at this time, I wasn't planning on going to college. I was just like not sure what I was going to do.
Was it next? Were you going to do music, or that wasn't really a thing?
No, it wasn't really a thing because I didn't know that I could study music in school in a way that made sense to me. Like I could do classical music, but honestly, my classical violin teacher there was so much friction there. Like she hated that I loved bluegrass and fiddle and old time. Every time I would like go to a festival in the summer for a weekend, I'd come back and she'd be like, your wrist is collapsing. Oh your God. Technique is like, this fiddle music is getting into you. And it's like, she was really, really negative about anything other than classical music. But I mean, there were not a lot of options for violin teachers in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania in 2005. So she was like the best teacher that I could have, but like my parents weren't going to like drive me to Philly or Baltimore. I mean, some people might, like go get lessons in Philly, but it was just like, no, she's 15 minutes away. So this is your violin teacher. She was like a really good teacher and really taught me a lot about phrasing and like how to hear music and internalize music. But she was really, really harsh and really critical. My younger sister, Nina, also had her because Nina played violin too. So then she ended up with the same teacher. Yeah. But she really despised all of the music that we did outside of classical. Jeez. And she also told me that there was no future in classical music for me and that I should just be a journalist or like something else. She kept teaching me, but she was like, but don't study this in college. God. Like that's not a future you want. You don't want a life that's like that. That's not a very inspiring and you don't want to be like me. Kind of like, and I was like, so basically I was like going to these festivals and stuff kind of shamefully, and then I would go to my lessons and I was really working hard at classical violin and achieving stuff. I was like played in like state orchestra and stuff, but I knew like some of the people who like got to state orchestra, they were like gonna audition for music conservatories and stuff. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Like she wouldn't even like touch some of the repertoire that we were supposed to do if I was gonna do an audition. I was like, I really want to do like the solo Bach stuff. Like, but if you were into it. Yeah, I was like, I like had a spiritual connection with music. Like by the time I was like 16, 17, 18, I was just like, something happens to me when I play music and I can't explain it, but I didn't have anyone to support me in doing it. Wow. And I was like secretly practicing solo Bach, trying to come up with the fingerings and stuff, like in case I wanted to audition for music school. Yeah. But I was like, I don't know if like I kind of need her to like help me with this, but she doesn't support me going to music school. Yeah. Like my teacher does. It wasn't like my parents didn't support me going to music school. Like my violin teacher, the one person that like I felt could help me. Yeah. So that's what every musician needs at that point in their life, is like the enabler figure. And when I do these conversations with people, there's always somebody in their life. And it sounds like you kind of didn't have that, which is interesting. In that moment, But then you did at the fiddle camps, maybe. Yeah, I did. I started to at the fiddle camps. And then I was like, okay, my violin teacher she's not even relevant anymore if I try to go to Berklee, because that's school I can audition on whatever
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah.
And so I think a year passed. Like I didn't go to Berklee right out of high school, but I did end up going. I was like 19, because it was right before the Stray Birds. So I was 19 into 20, and I went for 3 semesters, and I auditioned on violin, and I was in the string department. And so my peers and my classmates were like Bronwyn and Jack and Duncan, the people I'd met at Swannanoa. And it was amazing. I met John Mylander, who's like still a great friend here in Nashville, and Patrick McGonigal, and Sierra Hall was there at the time, and so many people who I'm still connected to. And so in that way, like going there was like such a refuge for me, because I realized that that there were people who cared about music and teachers who believed that, it was possible to like play music and you're like past high school orchestra. And Daryl Anger was one of my teachers there for 1 semester, because I was a fiddle student there. And as soon as I got there, I was like really spending all my time listening to songs and writing songs.
Were you involved in the songwriting department?
I wasn't in the songwriting department, but I've always just been like adjacent to the thing that I really wanted or something. And because I absolutely didn't see myself as a singer, certainly not as a guitar player. Like I didn't think I had anything to do with the songwriting department.
You were strictly fiddle.
I was like, I play fiddle. And so I was taking lessons with Daryl 1 semester, and it was really cool. We were like doing these, like studying Billie Holiday recordings and like doing her vocal phrasing, but like on the fiddle.
Whoa,
so I was
cool.
like transcribing her vocals onto the fiddle. And then I was, he'd give me all the same homework of practicing all these, cool jazzy things as everybody else. But I was just really, really getting into songs and songwriting. And I was just like studying Bonnie Raitt records and studying like every song that she decided to sing and what was her vocal phrasing and how did they arrange it and all these things, and starting to write a lot. And I started entering
while you were at Berklee.
While I was at Berklee, started entering like the school's songwriting contests and stuff. And so I would I think just because I had been kind of internalizing songs for so long, once I started to kind of write them.
Was that an easy process for you, like starting to actually write songs?
Yeah, it was. The only hard part was being okay to like sing them in front of people.
Right.
But like actual craft of it, I had internalized so much that I didn't realize. Over all these years of like learning songs and playing on songs and being around songs from like the bluegrass world and old time world. And
did you have an outlet to play your own songs there?
Not really. That just quickly became the Stray Birds.
So Stray Birds came out of Berklee? Were those guys there?
No. Okay. I had met Oliver in the Stray Birds like right before I went to Boston.
Is he from Pennsylvania?
He's from Pennsylvania, Lancaster County.
Oh,
so is Charlie. We're all from the same.
Did you guys grow up
hometown
together?
Charlie and I did. We were in middle school orchestra together. Yeah. We've known each other since we were like 12.
But Oliver was not in your
He was
world.
in a different part of the county.
Okay.
And he was 5 years older.
Oh, okay.
I had met him, and I moved to Boston, and we had already started playing some music together, and it was really hard.
The 3 of you?
Yeah. But mostly me and Oliver at that point. But the 3 of us a little bit. Oliver would like come up to Boston and visit, and I think it was really hard for him that I was like in a really vibrant scene of people up there, and like suddenly, basically like I had met Oliver in that kind of moment where I had not had my parents pushing me at all in any direction. I didn't have any music teacher that was seeing what I wanted to reach for and validating that. And then I met Oliver, and this is before Berklee. I met Oliver in Lancaster at a party, and we were like singing harmonies and singing songs together. And he was like, we should like play music together. And I was like, okay. And so he was kind of like this person that was like, oh wow, I could do this. And then I was writing a ton of songs already, like before going off to Berklee. I was like starting to write a ton of songs, and I wanted to record them. And he was like, I can help you do that. And it was actually going to be, I wanted to make some solo recordings and have them so that I could take them up to Boston and like try to play some gigs up
While
there.
you're at school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that became the Stray Birds.
Okay.
Like he was like, well, I can help you arrange them. And then he became the producer, but I didn't know what that meant. And then we like
so
made
you made
this
your first
recording
recordings in Lancaster.
in Lancaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's called Borderland and it's the Stray Birds. And so that was like done while in the summer leading up to me going to Boston.
Yeah.
And then me going to Boston, I played like one solo show, and that was like, me and Oliver's dynamic was really complicated at that time. You know, there was like a power dynamic because I think I gave him a lot of power because he was that person, maybe looking back of like, oh wow, you can play music. But then I like went away, and then he came up there and I played a solo show, and he was like, you can't do that. You can't, like, we have a band now.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I don't want to get too deeply into that dynamic, but that was a real shift for me. And I was like, okay, I'm in the Stray Birds now. And so there was like this very small window of time where I started writing songs, wanted to make a solo record, but then it became
quickly
became
by
the Stray Birds.
Yeah.
And
were you writing all the material for Stray Birds?
I wasn't writing all the material. Oliver was writing a lot of original music too, but there was always quite a bit of friction when we would go to record because I was always putting my best material forward and putting the stuff that I cared about the most. And because I really saw that as like, in a way it was a relief that the band, that in a way his sense of control over that project was a relief because it meant that I could kind of relinquish the control and just be a part of something and not like keep trying to like get something off the ground.
Was it disheartening to you though as a writer to have stuff get passed over?
It just felt like that was a trade-off that I had made. Like, okay, maybe another record will come around where I can have these songs because we had to have, I was not the lead singer. Like I've seen articles or reviews of shows for the Stray Birds where I was called the lead singer, but maybe that's because I was the only girl. I don't know. But like and I sang songs, or I sang 70% of the songs in the show, or 60, even if I sang 53%, I don't know. But I was always putting the stuff that I really cared about, like, into our recordings. And I think that Oliver just wasn't as, I think he was a couple years older. He didn't feel maybe like doing other things in music felt more accessible to him at the time. And it just, over time, it became clear that there were songs that he'd have a song, but he didn't really want to have it on the Stray Birds recording because he might use it for like a solo project in the future or something. But he'd already kind of, again, like I gave him the power to, that I thought that was, he was like, you can't play solo shows. So, okay, well, I can't have a solo project then. This is what I do.
Yeah.
So all my songs exist in this world, and I'm giving my best songs to this band. And I was literally writing for that band and imagining like 3-part harmonies and huge choruses. And like, that's all I did. And so, I mean, that initial power dynamic was present for the whole entire
because you guys were a band for like
7 years.
Oh, just 7. Okay. I was going to say like 10, but
yeah,
that's a long time to be in a dynamic that's maybe not super healthy for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of tension then towards the end of the band of like, I don't know, just like I started to get attention sometimes. I started to sometimes get singled out as a songwriter in the band. I didn't realize that like another dynamic was possible, or like that a healthier, more truly collaborative and non-competitive.
Were you already thinking about splitting and doing your own thing, or was that just not on your radar?
It hardly like felt viable, because this was my whole adult life so far. Like right. I was only at Berklee for 3 semesters. Then Charlie graduated from college. Oliver had already been touring. So there was a lot of pressure to like okay, leave school. Like,
so that's
just be in
really
our
why
band.
you left Berklee. It was like to go on the road and do the
and
thing
we
with
started
British
touring
Guy.
full time in 2012.
Well, yeah.
So
Did you like it?
I liked that I was playing music.
Yeah.
I liked that I was traveling.
And you guys were probably doing it pretty hardcore style. Like probably the money wasn't spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, we were like living. We Oliver bought a Subaru Outback, and that's what we toured in for the first couple of years. It was really packed in tight. We had seven instruments in there, including an upright bass, because passing the different instruments around was really important to us. It was just kind of crazy, and we were getting we were so young, and that I think we were, in some ways it was too easy to be noticed because we were young and we were a band. We weren't solo people. So we really stuck out at Folk Alliance and I
remember you really sticking out at Folk Alliance.
Yeah. So we got some easy attention.
But you guys were all really good too. It was a good band. It wasn't just you were a band. It was you were a really exceptionally good band. Yeah. And we were just kind of winging it, and we were doing our best. Did it feel like you were progressing?
For me,
from an outsider's point of view, I didn't know that much about you guys, but I would see you because I was going to Folk Alliance a lot in those days. And I remember seeing you guys and feeling like you were in the upper echelon of that, and that must be translating into your life the rest of the year when you're touring and stuff and playing bigger places and stuff. But maybe it wasn't really like that.
I mean, we were progressing in the level of festivals we were playing and stuff. We got to go to Denmark and play at the Tonner Festival and some festivals in Canada, and we played at Merlefest and played at some kind of places that just seemed every bit of it seemed surreal to me to be able to get to those places, but a lot of it was on the inside for me. It was going through the motions. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just managing the internal stuff of the band, and the internal dynamics. Eventually, it was so difficult within the band, and the demands of it was all we did for a living, it wasn't enough to really make a living. So I did stuff outside of the band, babysitting and dog sitting and other things, in pockets of time in Nashville.
So you were living in Nashville at that the whole time? You were
not the whole time, but after a couple years.
Living but not living.
The first year or two of the band, we just lived at our parents' houses in Lancaster. And that was how we got the band off the ground, because we didn't have any rent. Right. They just let us sleep there and, practice and go on the road. So
eventually it feels like it was, a dynamic musical experience, but also personally just a really trying thing for you to go through.
Yeah. And creatively, so the last record that there was a really, really sort of handcuffing pressure on me. That was people really like your songs, Maya. What songs do you have for the next record?
Yeah.
But make sure it's not too many. And also, I don't know, it was that dynamic was, and also we're going to tour basically year round. And I'm well, then when am I supposed to write the songs? I have no time. I have it takes time to write the songs.
Yeah.
And so I started kind of pushing back against our calendar and we need more downtime. And that was always a big deal, because it was no, we need to tour more so we can earn more money.
Yeah.
And eventually for our very last record, which we never even toured because we broke up before.
This is 2018?
Yeah, it came out in 2018, but we were writing it, and probably throughout 2017, I was I'm not writing any more songs for the band. We can write them collaboratively. Uh-huh. It's the only way.
Were you stockpiling songs for your own projects at this point?
Well, by 2017, I went and wrote songs by myself for a week. Really, it was just 3 days at my grandparents' hunting cabin in Pennsylvania. And I was that must have been in 2016 even. I don't know. But I had started writing songs where I was like, these songs, it's not like I'm withholding these songs from the band, but these are like not Stray Birds songs.
Clearly, yeah.
These are just different. I don't quite know, but also Oliver and I had been in a relationship for most of the band. Mm-hmm. Then we broke up, and that really freed me up. Like level 1 freedom of being like, okay, I can at least be like writing song. Like even if I can't play them outside of this scenario or really know how to exist outside of the Stray Birds, and
still doing a solo show would have not been an option.
Definitely didn't feel like an option.
Okay.
But I was like starting to write, and I was doing like, I think especially like once he and I broke up, then I started to feel that level 1 freedom of like, you know, okay, well, I'm going to play songs with Anthony DaCosta now. And okay, we're going to play New Faces Night at the Basement. Like, I can't remember what year I did that for the first time, but it was pretty late in the Stray Birds that I had started to kind of like inch my way of like, let me try this and see if this like blows everything up. And then I eventually had a pile of songs and I made a solo record. And this is, the Stray Birds were still a band. Like, but I made a solo record, like sort of without telling anyone.
Yeah.
And that's Adaptations. Mm-hmm. And so
that's with Anthony and like Ethan or
Anthony something? And Sam Grisman played bass.
Okay. Jason
Berger played drums. Dan Nobler produced.
Yeah.
We made it like a few blocks from here.
Where were you working?
At Dan's studio called Goosehead Palace that was in his garage.
Oh, he was over on this side at that point.
He was on the east side at that point, yeah. So we made that record in 2017. So actually Adaptations was recorded before the final Stray Birds record.
Okay.
So 2017 we recorded Adaptations. Didn't come out till 2019, but we recorded it, and I just kind of knew that I had that, and I was like, wow, that whole experience was like
really freeing.
Like, I was like, I don't know if I can ever go back. Like, now I know that that exists. But I still hadn't recognized that the Stray Birds was something that needed to end. Like, it did feel very confining and very like it was incredibly emotionally exhausting, you know, but I didn't realize that I could just quit. And
there's a lot riding on it.
There's a lot riding on it. It was like the way I was making my living. Like it was just like didn't feel possible. And so I loved working with Dan, and the Stray Birds actually worked with Dan as a producer for our final record then. But we didn't know at the time it was the last one. So I had kind of given my ultimatum to the band of like, we will co-write a record together, 3-way. Charlie has to be involved also. Mm-hmm. It's not cool that we're leaving Charlie out of writing in the band. So 3-way co-writes, and he'll come to Nashville, we'll book an Airbnb, and we'll just write all together and see what we come up with, spread the vocals around through the record. Because I was just sort of like trying to like separate this whole the whole tension of like the songwriting tension within the band and the control and all of that. I was just like, no, like I want less to do with the song, like 3-way co-write. That's what'll make it a real band.
Right.
Like let's try. And it was really, that was really difficult. Like Oliver and I had been in a 5-year relationship. We break up. I make a solo record kind of in secret. then we are co-writing this record all together, like with my ex-partner and my bass player friend from middle school orchestra. And we made this record called Let It Pass, and Dan produced it. So I had already experienced being in the studio with Dan as Maya. And then I experienced being in the studio with Dan as the Stray Birds. And so I was starting to have these kind of like different things to hold. Like, well, on one hand, I experienced this thing and I felt this way. Over here, I experienced this. And I mean, still, it's like I was still like pretty young. And
you guys never toured that record. That was just the end of it, right?
No,
right
because in 2018, the record came out in September 2018, but in June of that year, I just had a full body epiphany that I could not go on, because I was we were planning a fall tour, and I was like fantasizing about hurting myself. Ooh. And like, I was like, if I break my arm, I don't have to do the tour. Or if like, I don't know, like I was just like, I had some really dark fantasies about how to get out of it. And because I just was afraid to make the choice myself and know that like,
that's a lot of pressure.
I was afraid to inconvenience the booking agency who had just booked this whole fall tour for us. I was afraid. But like, I was like, interior wise, I was like, I mean, any friend who knew me at that time and knows me, like I was like a shell of myself. Like I was like disintegrating. And I just, it was like a crisis for me. And I quit. And Charlie was like in full support. And Oliver and I are on, you know, just gentle, amicable terms at this time. But it was like really, really,
that was a rough time.
It was really rough.
Yeah.
And it was then it was really rough for me to like come out of that and feel like I had any sense of belonging in my own music. Because
I think that's right around the time that I met you, was like you came out and did some shows with us.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really soon after that.
Yeah.
So I was just really struggling for the first couple years, really, after that, to feel like I deserved to be at peace making my own music.
Wow.
You know, like, because it had been such a long journey, like to get there, and so many achievements that felt like more handcuffs.
So you've made a few records along the way, and I was wondering if we could talk about the newest one.
Yeah.
The Only Moment.
Sure.
When I talked to you last about recording, you were working out at, I'm blanking on his name, the studio.
Phantom?
Well, what's the guy's name? The bass?
Mike Elizondo.
So was that this record? Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about that process a little bit.
Yeah. So it's the fourth full-length one, and so when I mentioned like when I was getting used to playing and singing my own stuff, it was usually at the 5 spot with like Anthony DaCosta, Don Billett, Ethan Yojevitz. That was kind of the live band. And I realized that I had never really kind of taken a musical snapshot of that crew, that chemistry of people.
Right.
So I really wanted that to be the band.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't really playing live shows that much with them in town anymore, and things had really evolved, but I was like,
were you co-writing with Anthony too, or was he was just playing guitar?
No, just playing guitar.
Yeah.
There's a couple co-writes on that record. There's one with Phoebe Hunt, one with Caitlin Canty, and one with Oliver Wood. But the rest are just me. And so that was the vision. We recorded in 2021. And
so how did you end up out at
Mike's?
Yeah.
So
this is he's fascinating to me, because he's like, you know, I love a lot of the stuff that he's done, and he's like such an LA guy. You know, he was a big part of the hip hop scene, and he's played on he's a big part of like Fiona Apple's records and all this stuff. And then he just ended up kind of outside of Nashville all of a sudden. Yeah. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
And then you're working at his place. Like what was the connection there?
So right before the pandemic, I went to a house show in East Nashville, and this guy, Alex Wilder, was there. He had just moved to town to go to Blackbird Academy for engineering audio school. And I met him that night, and he was like, I'm a fan. I'm one of your Kickstarter backers for How to Break a Fall, which is my second record. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have a listening party to How to Break a Fall at my house, like next week. You should come. You can be like the token Kickstarter backer. Everybody else who's there like played on the record. Yeah. But you should come. So I invited Alex to my house, and we became really good friends. Mm-hmm. And then I actually Ethan and I think helped him end up living with Kai. He ended up living with Kai Welch. He still lives there. But we just became kind of like some of his first friends in town. And then pandemic happened. He, occasionally he would be in our pod and we'd be having soup in a backyard or something. And we didn't even know he was going to stick around in town after audio school or not. He's from Maine originally. But I remember one day he was like, well, guys, I got a job.
A That's so rare.
I got a job at this producer named Mike Elizondo. I'm going to be like one of his sort of like house engineers and, assistant engineers. Just, I want to work there. Yeah. It's like, it's a good job. So Monday through Friday, I just, go up to his studio and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And like, I didn't really know who this person was. Ethan, being a bass player, knew Mike Elizondo.
Sure.
And he was like, wow, Alex, that's amazing. And so as Alex kind of got into a rhythm of working at Phantom Studio, he told me
that's the name of
the studio. He was
Phantom.
like, he's like, hey, so Mike is really generous, and he told me and the other people working there, like, if we ever want to use the studio, just like on the weekends, because he's a family guy. Like, weekends are very precious to him. He's probably with his family. Like, it's really rare that he would need the studio on a weekend. So Alex can have access to it.
It's in his house? Or
it's not in his house. It's on a
detached?
separate property.
Oh, okay.
But so he's like, you got, you can come and mess around with it, make a record, whatever you want to do.
Wicked.
And I was like, are you serious? Like, that will work great. Okay, let's do it. And I don't know if Alex thought I would take him up on it or not, but
so you actually set out to make a record.
I was like, okay.
It wasn't just like a song.
I was like, I had wanted to, I'd been planning to make a record like before COVID, and then Ethan and I ended up making Violet Light in our house because of the pandemic. And then, so then this was like 2021, spring, summer 2021, June. First weekend in June was the first time we went up to Phantom to track. And I was like setting out to make a record. We booked 3 days. We did 2 days in June and a day in July, all weekends. Yeah. And then I was like, oh wow, I've never like self-produced myself a record. Now I have all this stuff, all these great takes we did, and now I have to decide what else I want to do.
Just straight up like band setup, everyone playing together. That's what everything is on the record.
Everyone playing together except
who's playing keys? Is it Kai?
It depends. I play some keys. Okay. And Alex Wilder overdubbed some keys.
Okay. And Anthony DaCosta
on guitar,
Ethan
electric
on
guitar,
bass.
Ethan on electric bass, except on Odds of Getting Even, he plays upright. And
there's some bass moments.
Yeah, there's bass moments. Yeah. And then Dom Billett on drums. Okay. And there's only percussion overdub on like one song. It's just like live drums.
Yeah. What's the setup up there? Is it like a big open room?
Yeah, there's like a main room. There's a big open room with drums. And so Dom was in there and Anthony was in there with his amps and an amp zone. And then Ethan had a bass room. And then I had a booth, like a room. As there's windows out. Yeah. All the windows are sort of around the
It's
edge.
a purpose-built place. It's not like a house or something.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I just stood there, sang and played acoustic guitar. And I picked one acoustic guitar from Mike has some amazing guitars in the studio. And I just picked one out and used that for the whole record.
Wow. Okay.
And so
and
there
are you
was
playing and singing at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I went back in and re-sang Maybe If They Feel Like Wings. I think that was
because
one.
There was an issue where you just felt you could do it better? Or
I think on that one, it was hard for me to really do the performance I wanted with the finger picking guitar thing that I'm doing and the singing at the same time.
So did you go back in and do a guitar thing totally on its own? Just
I
to get
think
that
that's
nailed, and then
maybe we just tracked it with. Might have done like I use Click. I really like using Click actually.
Oh yeah, Click is your friend.
Click is my friend. Yeah. So on a lot of the stuff we used, some of the stuff we didn't, but on a lot of the stuff we used Click. So it was easy for me to go back in and put a guitar part down. I played a couple other things too, like, I don't know, just Mike has cool synths, tried some of those things. And
so you as producer, were you getting involved in people's parts and stuff? Like there's some really specific like drum parts and I mean the guitar stuff definitely sounds Anthony DaCosta-ish. So I'm imagining he, like came up with his own crazy stuff. But were you getting involved in what people were doing orchestration wise, or just sort of letting them do their thing?
We did have some rehearsals before we went up there.
Okay.
And I was somewhat involved in, I guess, just like the mood of the song and like what I wanted it to communicate and try like, okay, well, what if we try something else? But there's some, I mean, they each have such a strong creative voice that is like, I remember like on Ribbon, the last track, like Dom suggested like, what if I do this kind of groove? And like, what if it feels this way? And that kind of changed what everybody else was playing.
Sure.
And
that's the beauty of doing it all together.
Yeah.
Too,
so like that definitely like happened. But like, I remember Compass was a tricky one to record because I kept saying to them, like, I just want it to feel more slippery. Like I need it to be lighter, and like maybe we just need to play a little, maybe like less. But the guitar hooks that Anthony was coming up with, like those are his things, you know. Sometimes there's hooks that I write with my songs and I'll sing them to somebody like, hey, can you sing this kind of hook that I have in my head? But
so you had to like gradually scale it back, like doing different takes until you kind of like stripped it back down to where you felt it was slipperier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was the first time that that everybody was looking to me like.
And how was that?
You know, it was cool because it was all spread out. Like we did 2 days in June, and then it wasn't like I had pressure to like.
So you were playing through like 4 tunes a day kind of thing?
Yeah.
It's fast.
And then we did one more day in
And that's the whole
July.
record.
Well, then I tracked Watching the Whole Sky Change on my own. That's just me playing guitar and singing. And then Alex tracked Wurlitzer. And then Nothing Else Matters is me playing guitar and singing. And then I played...
Playing guitar on that?
No, I did all the guitars on that.
Oh, cool.
And then I played synth too. So I play all the instruments on Nothing Else Matters. And then Phoebe sings harmony. Yeah. So that was a process too of then we'd go up to Phantom like on another Saturday and be like, Phoebe, can you come up and sing on 5 songs? And she'd just sing on 5 songs.
Oh, so she's the singer on
everything.
On everything. Okay.
Yeah. So
great harmonies. And did you have all the harmonies worked out, or
we did them one at a time. I kind of had some parts in my head. Like I'd teach her a part. Yeah. Like, hey, this is what I've been hearing. Can you do this kind of a thing? And she was really open to that. And I really like 2-part harmonies. I really like 3-part harmonies, you know, too. But
and you're really fast and good at picking those out.
I'm fast at harmonies. Stray Bird School of Harmony Singing. Yeah. So it was a really cool process. I put it on the back burner then for like a long time because Joel asked me to produce a record.
But what about the mixing and stuff? Did that happen at that time too?
No, it didn't happen.
Oh, so you tracked it and walked away.
Just tracked it and walked away, and then went back and like did a little bit of edits and overdubs, and then walked away for another 6 months, and then another overdub and walked away for 6 months, and then had Phoebe like maybe like it'd been sitting there for like a year and a half, and I was like, I think I need Phoebe to sing on this. Like it was literally sitting there at Phantom for a year and a half before I got Phoebe.
That's hard to pull off.
Well, I was trying to get my touring going. I was releasing Violet Light in 2022, and towards the end of 2022, when I was just about to get back to Phantom and work on this, Joel asked me to produce a solo record for him. And I was like, that would be great because then I don't have to like worry about another job this winter. That'll be my job.
And was that something you were thinking about doing?
Ahead.
Was the producing for other people thing?
As I worked on my own thing, as I worked on The Only Moment, I realized that I felt ready to do it. Like I felt comfortable enough in a studio setting to listen and have the attention span for like the duration of a day. And I mean, when I made Adaptations and when I made How to Break a Fall with Dan Nobler producing, it was a beautiful experience, but I was checked out. Like I was shut down. I've told the story now of like where I was emotionally. Yeah. You know, I was like, I just would go in and I'd be like, he would just be like, okay, you're going to play this guitar.
Tell me what to do.
And I'd be like, okay. So I'd play this guitar and he'd touch all the knobs, and I had nothing to do with like picking the takes or comping anything. Nothing. Like I wasn't present for any overdubs. I just was completely checked out.
Which is okay when you're not the producer.
It's okay. But I was just like, it was all that I had to give. Like Dan made me feel, he made me feel so safe that like I could just sing the vocal. I could just go into like this interior world and like sing and perform and then be like, okay, cool. I did my thing. I'm going to go eat a sandwich now.
See you later.
And they'd be like, okay, I'm going to get Russell Durham to do strings. I'm like, great. Like it didn't even occur to me that I should be involved, you know?
Talking about strings, who did all the string arrangements on?
I did.
You did?
Yeah. And I played them.
That's
on
all
violin.
you?
That's all me.
Those sound incredible.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was my first string arrangement.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's on, what song is that on?
If They Feel Like Wings.
Right. Is that the only song that's on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're really great.
Thanks.
You should do more of that.
Thanks. I just wrote some for another record I'm producing. So
that's all violin?
It's all violin.
Oh, okay. I thought there was like some viola or cello or something in there.
It's all violin.
So with Joel, he just said, like, he was starting from the ground up and just said,
yeah, he had
can you produce this for me?
So he started touring with me in 2022. So the only moment had already been tracked, we already had the band tracks laid down, but then it was just sitting there and I wasn't doing anything with it. And 2022 comes along and Joel's in my touring band and he was like, I really like the way that you arrange songs in your band and the way you communicate with everybody and the way you treat people. And I want to make a record and I want you to produce it.
Cool.
What do you consider doing that? And he's like, I know that's like a new thing for you. Cause I know you're working on one of your own, but you did Violet Light and with Ethan and you've, been involved with a bunch of Stray Birds records in any capacity. And I was like, okay, let me think about it. And, and then I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so then I just switched gears and I completely put my record on the back burner.
And just focused on that.
I just focused on Joel's. And we did like pre-production, figured out what the songs were going to be. I put a band together.
So what band did he put together?
Ethan on bass.
Solid choice.
Mark Raudaball on drums.
I don't know him.
He played in Dawn of the Buffalo for a long time.
Oh, okay.
I call him the dance tent drummer.
Okay.
Because he plays in Forecast with John Mylander.
Oh, okay.
Plays in Sierra Hall's.
Oh, I've seen him then.
Now he's in Sierra Hall's like band, like her, now that she's doing like the full band thing. Yeah. So he's been touring with Sierra for a while.
Okay.
He's incredibly groovy and fun.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mark, DeMarco Johnson on keys, who was new to me to work with. I had seen him play around town and had just kind of like put it in my mind. Like,
does he play steel too?
Maybe, but on the record, it's Brett Resnick playing steel on Joel's record. But DeMarco was like piano and organ and Wurlitzer and stuff.
So where'd you do it?
At Phantom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You got me in there now.
We did it Grammy week because Mike was out at the Grammys.
Perfect.
And Alex was like, yo, we could have the studio for like 4 days straight. Cause like, it's like, when else are you going to get to be at Phantom on weekdays? To do a thing where you dig in for 4 days straight. That's like amazing. Yeah. Like the only moment.
Is there enough cool shit out there to just like go out there and like there's drum kits and
amps and there's
stuff?
Drums, everything's set up and ready to go.
Wow.
Like you just do it. So we like sort of moved in and
how was that?
Spent 4 days there.
Did you play on it?
I do some harmony singing and play some synth.
But mostly you were just in the control room.
I was just in the control room.
Doing the thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's
old school producing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But I wasn't, it just, I don't know. There's fiddle on it and stuff, but we got like, there's other good fiddle players, like that really do the thing. Yeah. Like we got Jason Carter come in and overdub some stuff and had some different guest harmony singers and stuff. And I do a bunch of vocals on the record, but
it's nice to have other voices too. Yeah,
totally. So so
is that done?
It's 3 singles have come out already.
Wicked.
And it's coming out February 7th, the full album.
And do you enjoy like the mixing side of things? Like, do you get involved in that as the producer, or do you kind of like turn that over a bit? I'm
getting involved with it a little more as I start to understand like what all it can do. I think it's taken me. That was like how I did it too. It's taken me some time to like comprehend how different it can be and like what mixing even is and what it's bringing to the table and like. So I think especially like, cause I'm finding that being in that role, I don't really have like a sound. Like it's not like I have my own studio and the players that I like to work with. And this is like, I don't really have like, I don't like push the songs through my program. It's like so much about what that artist is. Mm-hmm. And so far there's a different mixing engineer on every thing that it's, it's been like on mine, it was Justin Francis who works with Alex. That was Alex's idea because Alex Justin works with Mike a lot and works at Phantom a lot. And Alex was like, because Alex and I had gotten The Only Moment like pretty close to what we wanted. We just done kind of a lot of our own mixing, kind of pre-mixing. We really had a concept for it. And he was like, Justin's just going to make it sound better, but he's not going to like
stomp all over
interpret it really, and any, like, he'll just kind of clarify our vision and uplift it in a way. It's
good to have a fresh set of ears at that point
like,
too.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So we went with Justin, and then Joel's has some stuff that's like really gritty, and it's called psychedelic surf country, and kind of just like has these like, there was like more room for like a little bit more like interpretation and color and stuff. So we sent it to Dan Nobler, and so he mixed that one. And then Shelby's bluegrass record is, we tracked it with Lawson White.
Oh, okay, cool.
At the Parlor, the band playing down everything live and stuff.
And you're not playing on that either?
Not playing. A lot of singing.
Okay.
But no playing. And then...
How is that going into bluegrass mode?
So crazy, because these are like...
It's so different.
It's so different, but it so feels like my... Almost like a mother tongue or something. Like, I'm very comfortable.
Were you aware of trying to make it sound traditional?
Yeah, like we definitely had a thing we were going for, and like her and like the people we were choosing to be on it, like they're just people who we just like know the sound that they can bring to the table, and like know how much they're gonna like sort of honor like know that like the songwriting is really good, and like Shelby's not trying to push the boundaries like instrumentally. Like it's not it's not like some of it is like more modern slick bluegrass sounding, but some of it is it's definitely not like jam grass, like there's no effects of anything. It's bluegrass. Yeah, I mean, it's like, and the players are just like really
it's her band.
Did you
assemble a band?
We assembled a band. So it's Brian Sutton on guitar, and
that slouch.
Yeah, it's incredible. Sam Bush on mandolin.
Okay.
And Jacob Means, Shelby's brother, on mandolin for a few songs.
Nice.
And then we had a few fiddle players. We had Michael Cleveland on some of the record. Bronwyn Keith Hines.
He's incredible, eh?
He's absolutely incredible. Yeah. Bronwyn was on a few songs, and Billy Contreras on a few songs. Yeah. And so that's a really cool element that the fiddle, as a great fiddle appreciator. That's really cool.
Was it always tracked live though, or were you bringing in people to overdub?
Yeah, they all tracked live. So we did it just in 3 days at the Parlor, and like we were cooking. It was like, here's the charts, here's the arrangement, let's go. And
is it intimidating having somebody like Sam Bush come in, who's been around the block so many gazillion times and he's been doing it forever? Or were you just like, that's that guy? In theory,
like Jerry Douglas was on the session. Yeah. Like these people that like Ron Block, like I grew up, I listened to a ton of Alison Krauss and Union Station growing up too. Like I could mouth you exactly the phrasing of, like,
I can hear that in your singing.
Certain songs, like studied it without knowing I was studying it, kind of relationship with that music. So when Shelby was like, Union Station is a big deal to me, and Allison is a big deal, and Ron Block, I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah. Like, and Shelby somehow like just knew, I don't know, we're friends, and she just knew that about my history, and can see that in my singing. And she really wanted somebody who had her back as a songwriter and as a vocalist. Okay. So she was like, sure, I could hire like a super bluegrasser to put this band together, but like I really need you to help me make the songs the best they can be, arrangement wise and editing wise and performance wise. I really want you to like make sure I'm getting the best vocal takes I can. And I was like, okay, I can do that. But like, so it was kind of like the band like played itself, like the people we got in there are just, they loved it. Like Ron Block was just he, at one point he was just like, he's like, yeah, like, I'm so glad you called me, 'cause I had to like go to his website, get his email, like ronblock@acus.com or something, and just cold call email him,
Sure.
like it was like that part I think was
They're just people that want to work
totally.
too, right?
I think that's what
sometimes.
I like was realizing is like, oh, they all are just like, cool, another gig. But they all really respect Shelby and respect her role in Molly's band. And I think they can see that she's trying to step into a moment of like, she has this platform as a bass player in a pretty high profile bluegrass band. And she's really itching to like step out and, just give some of her own songs, offer those to the world. And so a lot of those guys have, can appreciate that and have like seen that in their own friends and in their own bands and the way things ebb and flow. And so they're down with that. And they actually like, I don't know, like, I think I didn't feel any kind of, they were so like respectful and sweet to me too. Like, I think, and like, Ron even like said something like, just like, wow, like you, like this is like real friendship. Like you really believe in Shelby and she really believes in you and you're really like giving each other this opportunity to, I don't know, like he could see how much I cared and that our relationship was what it was. Like basically like there was no weird power dynamic, it's not like I was some like multi-Grammy. Yeah,
music doesn't have to have power dynamics.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
like
learning that
it doesn't,
gradually.
It doesn't have to. But I think that now I feel so, because I feel so kind of cleansed of my former power dynamic issues, like I can walk into a studio and be like, hey, Sam, and like, it's just music. And like, I don't know, like they have what they have that I don't have is like so many more years of experience, in these settings, and like, just like a richness of nuanced ideas of, well, this thing happens and I kind of want to do this. And like, but then Shelby and I have like this other perspective and this kind of fresh take on this thing. And like,
and they probably need that a little bit.
Yeah. Like we covered, like Shelby had picked out a couple covers and that she wanted to try. And like, I was just like, yeah, like this Lady Gaga song. Yeah, that's the one. Mm-hmm. Like, she's like, I wonder what these guys are going to think about this, We're like, I don't know. Like, what's Jerry going to think about playing on a Lady Gaga song? And you're going to put this on a bluegrass record. But the way that it was just like, well, if we believe in it, like, and like Ron wasn't even going to come in that day, but he was like, wait, what are you guys doing? I want to play on that one. So they were just like really into it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like a dream experience just for both of us, but maybe just another day in the studio for those guys, but definitely like life-changing for me to be able to do that.
Do you see the production thing as being a something that you want to pursue in a big way, or is it just like if somebody asks, you'll do it? And
so there's 2 more that I'm working on.
Oh wow!
Already.
What are they? Can you?
Hannah Dehlin is who has also done a little bit of singing on my stuff in the Infinite EP that I did.
Okay.
She's making a solo record. So basically like those 3, like Joel, Shelby, and Hannah, it was sort of like they just knew because they knew each other. Like Joel and Shelby are married. And like, So Shelby saw Joel doing the record with me, and Shelby was like at some of the sessions at Phantom. Yeah. She was like, wait, I want you to do that for me. Yeah. I want to hire you to do the same thing. So then she was like, I want to make a bluegrass record. So then we did that. And then Hannah kind of being like in that bandmate connected world, because Shelby has played with me too and toured with me at certain times and sings on How Bad I Want to Live. And so Hannah was like, wait, I want you to do that for me. And so it wasn't like a public thing that I do this or anything. And then I just mentioned the Shelby record when I was like at a hang at Moss Tacos with Aiden, who I'm producing a record for, Aiden Van Studendal. And
who's he? He's a local.
She is a local who was in a band called Bill and the Bells for a while as a banjo player and singer. But this is not a banjo record. This is like songwriter record. Cool. She plays guitar, and so we're going to track that in February.
And are you working out at Phantom again?
No.
You need more than free weekends.
Yeah, I need more than free. The weekends thing is, it's good for some things, but we're going to work actually at Sean Sullivan's at the Tractor.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And yeah, do that in February. Yeah. And I got to know Sean and work pretty closely with him in the last couple of months because he's been mixing Shelby's record.
Oh, okay. Does that detract, I guess is the right word, from your solo thing that's going on? Or do you feel like it's just like a good extension of what you're up to these days?
I mean, I think that the solo thing is like, I just feel so, I don't know. I don't really have like a hierarchy with it all. Like, I would say that the one thing in my mind that like, if I'm not doing enough of it, I start to feel like I need it. That would be, well, I don't know, maybe that's performing too, but like right now that's writing, because I feel like my head has been in 4 full-length albums for these other artists, and then my own show of songs that have already come out. And so writing wise, I just feel like, wow, I just feel a little out of balance. Like I haven't been writing very much.
That's the trick when you're doing like multiple things.
And like, I can relate to that. But now I have a couple months of being at home and like, I'm still like, we're finishing up Hannah's record and we're still doing pre-production and kind of final stuff before we track Aiden's in February. But it's like, at least I'm not on tour in January. Yeah. So I think I'll find time to write in the next couple months. And I'm going on a writing retreat at Blue Rock, which is this place in Texas. Oh, cool. And so I like applied to this. They have them a couple of times a year. And I've never done one and I really want to do it. So I applied and they give you a stipend to like get down there. And, you know, it's kind of like all your meals and lodging and everything's covered. And you just get to write songs with like 4 other people for a week. So I'm doing that in April.
Co-writing stuff or just
your own solo stuff. So that feels really fun because I can like, and like it was fun to even do the application for it because you have to write down like what you want to work on or like what you kind of, and I was like, what do I want to do? And then it was like, you know, I was like, oh, I've kind of always wanted to like explore alternate tunings, but I just like, I never feel like I have time to like even like tune the guitar differently and like mess around. I can
see that really working for you.
So, but I've never tried it, you know? Yeah. So just simple stuff like that they just needed a cut to know like that you had some idea of what you wanted to do. And I don't have to do what I wrote on the application either, but you know, so I think just like the balance is important and rest is really
your newfound rest.
My newfound friend.
Yes.
Rest.
Yes.
It's really hard for me to rest because I just like really love to do all this stuff. But like it was like
and all this stuff is time consuming.
It was so heartbreaking to miss that week of shows. But I was like, okay.
And one was a Nashville show too, right?
Yeah, one was a Nashville show, but we're already working on rescheduling it. So
good.
Yeah, it's like, I think that's just the thing is the balance of it. I'm so happy in all of these. I'm so fulfilled and so happy in all of these directions of like, and getting to work with, like it's exponentially grown. Like the musical experiences that I've gotten to be a part of by producing, because like the only like overlap on Joel and Shelby's record is me, Joel, and Shelby. Like, because there's some co-writes between us or like we all sing on all of them. But like musically and instrumental wise and instrumentalist wise, it's all these different characters and voices and chemistry. And that's like thrilling to me because and
you're in the right city for that too, because there's so many amazing people.
And I'm happy to be in a supportive role. I loved being in a supportive role in the Stray Birds. I just didn't love that when I was trying to like step up and take up space that it was still so handcuffed kind of. And like, so I really thrive when my name is not on the thing. Like I really love that. And I've really missed being a cheerleader and a confidant and an advocate for other people, because those are roles that I really love and thrive in. And so I know that I don't only want to be my DeVitry touring around with a full band all the time. You know, that's like the one thing I know. And so all the other things, like, I'm not sure how many. I mean, I don't think I can. This has been too much. Like, taking on 4 projects that are all overlapping in some stage is way too much for somebody who's also trying to tour and sell merch and drive and whatever. It's too much. But I definitely want to continue to do it.
You'll find a balance.
Yeah. But I also want to just, right now, like, if somebody approached me, I would be like, I can't do that right now. Like, I can't take anything else on, like, for a while right now, production wise, because I just kind of need to, like, refill my
You need some time.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, need some time. And so it's nothing that I'm, like, actively pursuing. And I would turn something down. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Maya.
Totally.
I think we got a lot of wicked stuff here.
Cool.
Yeah. Music Makers and Soul Shakers is a bi-weekly podcast produced at the Hen House Studio in Nashville, Tennessee. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find us at makersandshakerspodcast.com. Thanks again to our sponsors this season, Larrivee Guitars, Fishman Pickups, Chase Bliss Pedals, Union Tube and Transistor, Spectra 1964, and the Hen House Hang. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.